Hello, everyone. Welcome to Acreage Living in Fresno County. Again, my name is Yue Lehman, and welcome. I do help my clients buying and selling acreage properties in Fresno County. If you have been thinking about or dreaming about living on an acreage property in Fresno, you've come to the right place. Today, I've invited our partners at the Hero Loan team to help. I'll let them do their introductions and what hero means. Okay, Michelle, want to get started?
Yeah, thanks, you. I'm so glad to be here. I'm Michelle Johnson. I'm the regional manager at Hero Loan Team. And with us, we have Ken James, who's our senior loan officer. And we're really happy to be here with you. We want to just kind of talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. So we started this company because we all have a special connection to our hero clients. The president of the company is a veteran. My husband's a veteran. My sister's a nurse. So we really kind of care about the people who give back to our community. And so we try to give back to them as well. And so a lot of people have a limited idea of what a hero client might be. So they might think only like doctors, nurses, EMTs, maybe firefighters, but really we have 5 different hero categories. So law enforcement and any employee within that. So it can, they can be corrections officers or dispatch. They don't have to be sworn shields. We've got firefighters, military, both active duty and veterans, and then educators. So not just your teachers and professors, but the principal, the lunch director, anybody working for that school district or university, and kind of think of that in the same vein with the medical professionals. So anybody working in the medical field, pharmacists, EMTs, doctors, nurses, but also anybody working in like medical, a billing or administrative, in physical therapy. So, just really, really expansive. If you're in a medical building, then you are qualified to get some special perks from the Hero Loan Team. And that's, of course, our specialty. If you want the same great service from Hero Loan Team and you're not in one of those medical fields, you probably won't have as many options as those who are in the hero fields. But we also will give you that same great service that we offer to everybody. So that's just a brief overview of kind of like who we are and who we help.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Michelle. And I think that's a great follow-up question. That's something you mentioned there is what are some assistance that are for the hero people only? What are something that they qualify in terms of purchasing a home that they're looking into for forever? Maybe they've been dreaming about it for forever.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer that. And thank you for that question, you. That's a great question. And my name's Ken. I'm a senior loan originator with the Hero Loan Team. And just piggybacking off of what Michelle said, the guidelines for what constitutes a hero and within these programs can be vague. And so I had a client that's a janitor with the school district or an IT person at a hospital, right? And so more people qualify for this than most know, right? And so I think it's always let us take a look at it and see. There is a high likelihood that you can qualify for some type of hero program. And now some of those programs can consist of the main things that are going to help someone buy a home. So some of the things that stop people from purchasing a home, right, could be maybe they don't have down payment. Maybe they haven't saved money for closing costs. Maybe they're concerned about interest rates, right? So these are a few of the variables that can come up. Maybe they're concerned about credit, right? That's a big one, especially now. And so we've got programs for heroes to help with grants for down payment. We've got grant programs for heroes that maybe need help with closing costs or other out-of-pocket expenses to offset the cost of purchasing a home. We have access to over 75 different lenders, and they all work with us exclusively, okay, within the Hero Purchase Program, and we have access to wholesale interest rates. So not only can we provide our heroes with these other programs to help them with down payment, help them with closing costs, but we can also give them access to lower interest rates, which I know is on the top of everybody's mind. Now, the other aspect is with credit, right? Every lender is a little bit different. And so what gives us an advantage having over 75 different lenders that work with us is that we have access to their different programs. And so I've got lenders that will work with heroes with scores down to 500. And that is a huge, huge benefit for our hero clients because that helps them get into homes when they've been declined elsewhere. So I would strongly urge you, even if you have a client that is concerned, right? If you're concerned about your credit and you're looking to buy a home, let us take a look at it. And worst case scenario is we can come up with a nice credit counseling and give you the opportunity to boost your credit over time. But ultimately, most people may qualify for a home, even though they've been turned down elsewhere, or simply just don't know that they do qualify.
Yeah, so make sure you reach out to Ken or Michelle or both of them and then see if you might be a hero. I didn't know school teachers qualify before. I think talking with Michelle, and that was a great learning. And thank you, Ken, for a few different ways that you explained how you and your team can help with hero purchasers. Our next question is, what are some loan options if our hero community members are interested in looking into purchasing acreage home in our area? That could be Fresno County, Madera County. We border each other. A lot of people live in one and working the other. Just anything you think of, and that would help them.
Yeah, so one of the main ones that could come up, especially if it's a buyer that is looking for an acreage property in a rural area, is it may qualify for a USDA loan, which would allow them to be able to purchase the home with zero down. So that could be one of the programs that we look at along with other government programs. But we can even look at conventional as well if they're purchasing land. But I would say in a rural area, and in every buyer, that's the one thing I want to emphasize is everybody's situation is a little bit different and what their needs are. And so the loan program is going to shift based on what the actual needs of the client are. But in a rural area, one of the first things that comes to mind versus an urban area is that USDA potentially becomes available. And so what we will do is we can log into the USDA portal and we can go ahead and see if a property is eligible. And that would be one of the first steps if that's going to be an option for one of your clients looking to purchase an acreage property.
Okay. Now then I'm thinking about what if, let's say it's families that have lived in town for a while, they're getting ready to get out of their starter home and really want to have more space for their kids and or maybe their pets. They have a home already, but they might feel stuck in today's environment, but they're physically stuck and mentally stuck. Um, do you have any options that could potentially help these group of people?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things we'd want to look at is the proper strategy, right? Because if they own a home currently, they have two options if they want to buy a new home. They could sell their home and go buy a new home, but they could also potentially rent that property out. And sometimes it can make a lot of sense keeping a property. Now, the next question would be, well, what if I don't have a down payment? Well, maybe we look at that USDA loan because that doesn't require a down payment. Or let's say they want to keep their home and they do need a little bit of money down to purchase that new home. Well, we could look at refinancing and pulling some cash out. Now I know they may have a 2.5 or 3.5% interest rate, but with investment properties, you got to think a little bit more like an investor because at the end of the day, it's not a question of what my interest rate is. It's will this property cash flow? What is my monthly payment going to be versus what I can rent this property out at? And how much cash can I pull out tax free and then go put that into another property? And so that can potentially be a lot more beneficial for building generational wealth than simply just selling that property and being done with it. So these are options we would go over, but every strategy is going to be a little different based off what your client's needs are going to be. But those are just a couple that come to mind.
Yeah, and of course, I think a lot of people, maybe most people that think of moving, they would think I have to sell my current home in order to move on to the next one, when in fact that might not be the case for you, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, being able to rent the smaller home out and then be able to move into a bigger home, that's great. And I think maybe not a lot of people know that the cash out refinance is tax free, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. Okay. What is my next question that I'm wondering? So I think recently we have a little bit of a rate drop, but can we speak a little bit more on the rate? Because I think that's becoming the norm. And if people are thinking about wanting to getting into a home, rate should not be the most important thing, right?
Rate isn't the most important thing. Yes, it is a pain point and it has to be acknowledged. The payment is going to be higher at a higher interest rate. However, at the end of the day, the rate itself is temporary because buyers will be eligible to refinance that property if they are thinking long term, right? And the goal is to buy a home. This actually can be a very advantageous market. Just 2 years ago, when we had record low interest rates, we also had record high competition, and a lot of buyers were competing against 10, 15, 20 others every time they, excuse me, every time they would submit an offer on a property. Let me just get a water real quick.
Yeah, and I'll pop in there a little bit to just talk about how, like what he's talking about, a lot of buyers, although they had a great interest rate and they had a monthly payment that would work for them, in order to actually get a home, they would have to come with $50,000 additional cash to actually secure a property. People were doing appraisal gaps. So really you were paying a bunch more money than what the home was actually worth if you were able to get into a home. And so really, even though your low interest rate is securing you paying less interest over time, the truth of the matter is when you're paying an appraisal gap and you're paying more than the home is actually appraising for, you're spending all that money you could have saved in interest. So like Ken is talking, there's a lot more to the big puzzle of putting your home purchase together than what that rate is. And there's even tricks of the trade, as far as a lot of loan officers aren't really very transparent with what that low rate looks like. And I think Ken can talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Michelle. And just kind of bouncing back into the interest rate environment, because also buyers were removing a lot of the contingencies that protect them at that time, that protect their deposit. And that's kind of can be a scary thing, right? When purchasing a home. Now, even in that market, it still made sense. Compete, compete, compete. Don't stop until you buy a home. But in this market, it still makes sense to buy a home because ultimately the path to wealth is going to be through investing in property, even if it's your own primary residence, because most homes are going to go up in value at a pace higher than what most people are going to be able to save in the bank. So having that along with some other type of financial plan, maybe it's a 401k or an IRA or whatever they have, it's important to have those tools if they're going to think about sending kids to college in the future or retiring in the future. In this type of market, the benefit is that there's less competition. So the strategy around this is get into the home. It is a pain point. The payment will be higher than it would have been if the rates were lower, but at some point rates will come down. We are starting to see rates trend downward. Now, whether or not that will continue, that we don't know, but the projection is we should see rates continue to go down further throughout the rest of the year. And even the Fed at the end of last year was talking about no more rate hikes this year. And potentially some of the Fed chair members were talking about reducing rates this year as inflation has been getting curbed over time. But the one thing I want to point out is that's not a good reason to wait, because you might think, and I would think too, hey, if interest rates are going to come down, I'll wait 6 months, I'll wait a year, I'll wait till they come down. Well, two things are going to happen at that time. One, property values are going to go up. So even last year in a high interest rate environment, they still went up between 5 and 7%. So if we're looking at a $500,000 property, do the math on that. That's an extra $25,000 to $40,000 that property went up in that time span, right? In addition to that, and I can guarantee that's going to outweigh what their payment would have been. The other thing to note is that for every 1% the rate drops, that's 5 million more people become eligible. So 5 million more people become eligible to buy homes. So guess what? You have a ton of competition. And this is still a very low inventory environment. And so really, and I would also say a third point is that if you in fact do need to leverage some of these programs like down payment assistance grants, asking sellers for closing costs, you don't want to be in a high competitive market, a high competition market. You want to be in a market like this that might be a little slower pace at a higher interest rate environment. And the goal would be to get into the home and then refinance later. Now, when exactly we refinance, it could be as early as 6 months, but I would plan for 12 to 24 months just to be safe. Just to be
Yeah,
safe.
yeah, and I want to add on top of that is maybe you wouldn't have to refinance because guess what? In a year or two, you might get a promotion. And then with the way inflation's going, you do a good job at work, that's very likely to happen, right? And it has to be adjusted. Everything is costing more now. Um, so that doesn't have to be, you know, a for sure thing to do in the future. But just keep that in mind. That would be an option. And another thing I want to touch on is what Ken you mentioned earlier. That's a great way getting into a property is a great way to build generational wealth. It's almost like a forced savings plan. You'll definitely get more out of that than if you were trying so hard to save the cash for years to come, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And
Yeah,
competition.
that's a
Go
great
ahead.
point, you that because if I, especially if I'm going from renting to buying, the most important thing is, can I afford that payment right now? Even if it's a little bit higher than what I'm renting, if I can afford it and I can make it work, then as I keep paying my mortgage over time, everyone else's rents are going up. And so my mortgage feels lower and lower and lower and lower over time, even if I don't have the opportunity to refinance, which many, many people do. I would say most, and in the lifetime of a home loan, they can refinance and either pull some cash out, like Ken said, to invest, or just keep the balance the same and have a lower payment. So yeah, the payment just doesn't feel as high over time, like you're saying, even if I don't refinance. So if I can afford it now, I need to get in now. And then now all that money I'm paying to rent goes in my forced savings plan, as you call it, you, and goes into my own home, you know?
Yeah, and it really benefits you and your whole family. You get the equity growth, and you're not even doing a whole lot of work, and it's where you live. And one thing I wanted to mention too, Ken mentioned earlier, with the competition. We know that you guys probably have heard too, buyers that have bought homes in 2020, 2021, that when they were so forced to act quickly, there were a lot of buyers' regrets. That's what we don't want when you buy a home. We want you to buy the right place where your family is going to stay there for as long as you wish to stay, not you feel so forced such that you have to get into one and feeling like that's your last option. And today is the environment to be able to make a clear head choice and be educated on what you can and cannot do in terms of purchasing your home, right? Yeah. Okay.
And
So,
I kind of want to just segue off of something Michelle brought up earlier about rents going up over time and your mortgage payment being fixed. Whether it goes down because you refinance or maybe it goes up because cash gets pulled out. But part of what we do with the Hero Loan Team and that separates us from other loan originators is part of our process is empowering our clients with enough information to make a well-informed decision. So we actually have data that we can share with our clients that can track the equity that they would gain over time based off of historical appreciation. But also, we can also track what rents will do over time. And we can actually look at these charts and then show whether or not it makes sense on a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, however long they plan on staying in the home. We can actually analyze that and then present it to the clients. And the other thing I want to definitely demystify with the qualifying process, because a lot of our clients will sometimes be hesitant to want to get qualified. And I think one of the hesitancies is a credit check. They don't want their credit to get impacted. And yes, a full credit check does impact the score about 3 to 5 points. But something that something that we do a little bit differently is we'll actually do a soft pull initially. So it doesn't impact the score. It doesn't cost the client anything. So there's no upfront cost to get qualified. There's no impact to their credit score, and it gives us the same information that a full credit check will give. The other thing we've noticed too is we want to get information out to our clients as quickly as possible. And so the old school method is full credit check, send me all of your documents like W-2s, pay stubs, very invasive. Hey, I don't know you, but let me get your bank statements. How does that sound? Never met you before. Never seen you, right? This is post-COVID. It's all phone calls and emails. So let me get your bank statements. We don't do that. So during the initial qualification stage, we'll gather the information based off of what they tell us so we can present information. If it makes sense to them, at that point, we can talk about the next steps, which is completing a full application and then sending documents over to us, because we are going to verify documents before we issue an approval. That's for sure. But I don't want that to be a barrier for your clients or our clients or clients that you refer to us to not move forward because it's just too invasive, or I don't want to pay for a credit check, or I don't want my score to get impacted. So we've kind of eliminated those barriers through the process that we've developed over time.
Yeah, that is a great point. I think the most I hear from buyers is that they don't want to talk to a loan officer because they don't want their credit to get hit, even though they might be in the dark of not, not knowing how much they could afford per month, or what that translate into a home price. So what you're explaining here, the way you and your team work is great. So I think that eliminate a lot of the scare to, having to send all the documents to, so to speak, a stranger and, get qualified that way. Okay, so that helps a lot. I'm sure that will encourage some people to reach out to you just to start the initial conversation.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
hope so. Yeah, I think it's a great start, and there's nothing wrong with information, even if, you know, someone thinks they're a year or two out, or doesn't think that homeownership's even remotely a possibility. Let's see. Let's find out.
Exactly. They wouldn't know unless they get in contact with you and find out and go
Mhm.
from there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say I am someone who um, might be a hero. I might work for an admin for a school district over here, and I really want to live over there in South Fresno next to a farm so I can just watch my birds all day and I can have my own garden and walk with my dogs on my own property every day. What is the first step that I should do when I reach out to you, Ken?
Yeah. So the first step is just reach out. Yeah. Reach out to you. Reach out to your realtor. She'll let us know, and then let's start with a conversation. The first step is learning a little bit about your situation. Everyone's situation is unique, right? But the more I learn, the more I can see, get a better idea of which programs are going to actually help with your client's goal of being able to purchase a home. So the first step is really just that initial contact, just a
Yeah,
conversation.
and
That's it.
I just want to say, I think that a lot of times, like a client, a buyer can be a little intimidated by reaching out to a loan officer because I might think, I don't qualify for whatever reason. I don't think my credit is good enough. I don't think my down payment is high enough. I don't think that what I need is realistic or whatever it is. And so I'm afraid to actually reach out to a loan officer because I think they're going to want all my tax returns. I don't have those in order yet. They're going to want all this information. And the truth of the matter is, and what we really want to let people know is that we actually are there to give you all of the information. We want to answer all of your questions. That's the first thing, is let's just get on the same page where hey, these are the things that I am looking for. These are the questions that I have for a loan officer. Just talking to us isn't locking you into then now going out and placing offers with you. It's not that, that process takes a little while. And it's really important to just at least talk to a loan officer. I know my brother and his wife thought about buying a house, contacted a loan officer, and because of their situation, worked really hard closely with that loan officer for 2 years, and then were eventually able to purchase that home. So the start of the journey really is with the loan officer, and everybody's journey is different, but just trusting that we're not going to force you into anything that you don't want to do. We're just going to help you get from point A to point B.
That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if the goal is to purchase a home,
Mhm.
our goal is to help you realize that, to make that a reality. I mean and that's such a great story, Michelle. It's the first time I've heard that, and I appreciate you sharing it. That's awesome to hear. I'm glad they found a good loan officer that helped them through that process and stuck with them for a couple years.
Yeah, well, and now they've got over $100,000 in equity in their home.
Ooh,
So, I
okay.
mean,
That's so exciting.
when's the last time most people have $100,000 in savings in their bank account? I don't think that happens very
Yeah,
often. So
some people might
it's
think that's
really
never.
right.
Mhm.
Right, exactly. So it's really an amazing, transition. And like I said, we can help you at your pace get to where you need to be.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Michelle and Ken. I think we will need to wrap up and very soon. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today and helping out with our Acreage home buyers who are also heroes in the Fresno and Madera County area. I love your purpose, and I really hope that we get to help them together, getting them into their dream acreage property very soon. But if you think it's going to be a year, 2 years out, don't be afraid. Reach out. We don't bite. We just want to help you out and be a part of your purchasing journey. And we're really excited for you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much for having us here. We're happy to be here. Of course, we specialize in hero clients, but if you love us and you're thinking, "Oh, I'm not a hero, I can't reach out to them," that's not true. Reach out, construction workers, attorneys, we don't care. Come on
Right.
in,
Thank you for
let's talk about it.
clarifying.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thank you, and Michelle, thank you for being here too. And this was a pleasure.